We want to break down for you. One of the things we want to focus on is try and answer the question, who has the edge? And we believe to answer that question, you need to break down Asin North properly. Look at the trends and look at who has the momentum going into the 27th June elections. So let's get to it. And let's hopefully by the time we end, you will have a clear picture who's to lose in these elections. And we believe by the time we end, it will be clear NDC and MPP, one of these two political parties has the clear edge, and it will be theirs to lose. Now, first of all, this is the map of the central region, right? And you see the outlines there that we've isolated for you, this area here. And I want to just circle that for you here. This area that we've deliberately carved out for you, for us, tells us a story. And there is a history to this particular area that I want to emphasize. So this area here in the central region, it is the Asin area of the central region. There are three Asins to focus on. To understand who has the edge in Asin North, you need to understand the three Asins. It is very important. Just bear with me for a second, okay? Let's start with the first Asin, okay? The first Asin, which is the focus of the by-election on the 27th, is Asin North, right? And that particular constituency, the incumbent member of parliament, well, he's no longer a member of parliament. In fact, you can't even describe him as a member of parliament because the Supreme Court says expand his name. So as if that didn't happen. But for the purposes of analysis, this is James Gyakye Quayson, the NDC parliamentary candidate, so that I'm not in contempt of the Supreme Court. The NDC parliamentary candidate who contested in the 2020 elections, he won that by 55.2% in Asin North. So bear that in mind for a second. The reason why the three Asins for us is important is that Asin North, as a constituency, as a standalone constituency, existed. But in 2012, something very interesting happened. And to understand this, you have to bring in a certain gentleman called Kennedy Japan. Kennedy Japan's constituency, and I want to isolate this area here. Before 2012, this area was one that Kennedy Japan had won quite handsomely. And by the way, this is Asin Central in the middle there, right? And that is where Kennedy Japan holds and is a current incumbent member of parliament. And he's been winning this area here, this broad area here, together with Asin North. He's been winning it, right? And then something happens, and there's some political calculation that changed the map here, right? And then you come to Asin South. And Asin South is held by John Fojo, who is a deputy education minister, who won it by 29.3%. So that is close, not by much. So if you look at the three Asins, as I'm talking about, you will immediately notice that two of the Asins are held by MPP incumbent members of parliament. Only one of the Asins is held by the NDC as we go into the by-elections. So that immediately tells you a story. But what was happening there in these three Asins? First of all, the first thing to notice, this area in this part here, that include the Asin North and the Asin Central, all used to be called Asin North, right? And I want to isolate that for you. So this area here, this area, and you want to take out the Asin South. They all used to be called Asin North. But then the NDC in 2012 did something very interesting. They realized that although Kennedy Japan was winning Asin North, and this whole area, as I've set circled for you, was one big constituency, and it was winning both. But they realized that in the northern part of Asin, that whole area of Asin North, this part of it, and this, by the way, this area here is the Ashanti region. They realized that northern part, they were getting significant votes, right? And so something interesting happened. They decided then to divide Asin North into two. And that's you see on your screen there, the Google Earth location, trying to locate for you what I'm talking about, just to illustrate for you visually, to appreciate this. And as we go into the elections on the 2027, all this will come to play in trying to understand who has the edge and who's to lose in the elections. So the NDC realized that, listen, we have a strong footing in the north of Assin North, to put it, plainly. A place that Kennedy Japan, strong candidate, has been winning nonetheless. So they carved it into two. Of course, because of the district, numbers, etc., and legitimately so. But of course, for political reasons, they did so. Before they did so, they've consistently been losing in Assin North. But the year they did so, in 2012, something interesting happened. And that's my next point here, to then begin to appreciate why the Assin North contest on the 27th will be very interesting. So this then begins to give you a picture of what I'm trying to say. You've seen the map, right? And remember what I was saying, that before this whole contest we were going in 2012, this whole area was one, and then it was divided. Assin North was divided, and then Central was created. Kennedy Japan went to contest in the central part because he knew that that is where the MPP have the strongest number of votes. And so he contested in that and won. The NDC also knew that the northern part was a stronghold of theirs. And of course, true to form, they won that. Let's go back to the point that I was making with this particular trend analysis that tells the story. So let's go first to 1996 as we move into the latter years, right? And if you look at the numbers here, and this is Kennedy Japan, right? And this is Kennedy Japan coming in 2000. And by the way, focus for me for a second, this area here, we are talking about the Assin Central area, right? And by that time, all this time, it was Assin North going in. He won it by 56% in 2000. You have, again, winning in 2004, again Kennedy Japan by 58%. So you begin to see he was tilting just at the 50s because of the impact of the northern part of that constituency, which was one big constituency, right? And then you come to 2008, again 55. So you begin to see the trend beginning to emerge. If you begin to link this, you begin to see the story emerging of just around the 50s. Plus or minus 55 is what he was winning by, throughout. And then you come to the point I was making earlier, that year, and that's why we've circled this for you here in this bracket here. Something changes. All of a sudden, the focus on Assin North changes slightly. The NDC government then of John Dramani Mahama then decides to carve this out. Of course, the Electoral Commission did its job, and they carved this out. And they created the Assin North and Assin Central. Kennedy Japan then decides, well, I'm now going to be contesting Assin Central, and listen and watch what happens. Immediately they created this, the NDC wins Assin North for the very first time. If you discount what happened in 1996, where the NDC won it by a clear margin, since then, Kennedy Japan has been winning until 2024. The first time it was carved out, the NDC wins it for the first time since 2000. The MPP comes in second with 44%. And this was in 2012. So that tells you a story that if you're really looking strictly at Assin North, which only came into existence in this current form in 2012, who has the upper hand? Well, don't come to the conclusion until you see what happens the next year, the next election year in 2016. Remember that what happened in 2016, there was a tsunami that blew away the NDC administration. And in comes the NPP winning it again, coming back to win that seat with Abena Droa Mensa, coming back to win it by 56.8% of the votes there. The NDC loses it by 39%. And my argument is this only happened because, as we know, of that tsunami that swept through in 2016. Other than that, this should be an NDC hold. If you look at the Assin North, I'm just, again, pay attention to the demarcations. The Assin North part, the NDC believed it is theirs, and they won it the first time it was created. And then no wonder. If you come to the latest election, which was in 2020, the NDC wins it back. And that backs the argument. That backs the argument that the NDC believes, and the three elections show that they believe they have a foothold in this part. If you're looking at the history, in this part of Assin, the Assin North area, they believe they have a foothold, and no wonder they won. But it is not as straightforward as that. So James Gyakye Quayson was a strong candidate. It was a strong candidate. Then don't be surprised that the NDC wants to put him up again, in spite of his legal troubles. They still want to put him up because he's strong. It's a strong candidate. He won it back for them in a place that they should win. He won it back for them. But this Assin part is also a very interesting part because they are very nuanced in the way they vote. And you need to look at the presidential and parliamentary voting pattern to understand that. The first, you see, they vote NDC throughout, 1996. They vote MPP throughout, 2000. Again, I remember the background I gave you. At this time, it was Assin North, not divided into North and Central and South. It was just Assin North and Assin South. The Central was created way later. Again, Kennedy Pong wins it. Again, Kennedy Pong wins in 2008. And then in 2012, NDC, that is created now, divided into two, Central and North, and then NDC wins. They win both presidential and parliamentary. But look at what happens in 2016. As I said, they again come back and MPP wins it. And then in 2020, in that 2020 elections, they vote skirt and blouse. They vote NDC for parliamentary, and they vote MPP for presidential. So you can also argue, if you look at it, that although the NDC believes that is their strong part, and so carved it out and created the North and the Central, the MPP has a strong showing there as well. At least in the year that they clawed back the seat, the MPP presidential candidate won in that area. So this is not going to be a straight fight by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to be one of the most complex elections, by-elections yet, especially in times like this. Nothing compared to Kumewu, right? This is a whole different kettle of fish because they are voting skirt and blouse. And constituents that vote skirt and blouse, you need to be wary of them, right? You need to be wary of them. So you can't even say they are a swing constituency. Yes, they predicted the winner of the ultimate elections in 2012. They predicted a winner here because they vote both presidential and parliamentary. But when it came to the elections, they only predicted what's going to happen in the presidential because they voted for the presidential, the president won, and then we had a hung parliament. And then they went to Parliament NDC. So that tells you a very interesting story about the people and the voters of Assin North. They are very astute, very nuanced, and they read the political temperature very well. I believe they are not the kind of people that you can buy with overnight streets, roads being done and street lights being put up. They are a bit more nuanced, a bit more complex in their judgment and estimations that they come to the table with in elections. And then you look at the Assin South area, which is where the MPP currently holds a seat, and they've won it. And this, they swept it, apart from 1996, they swept it all through. So the NDC winning year on year, election year after election year. And so there's no real problem there. It just tells you a story of the Assins, the three Assins, and why possibly the NDC created the Assin North, because it believes if you leave the Assin North and Assin South the way it stood, the MPP would have won it all the way. So let's create some for ourselves, and they took it back. Okay, and then you come to the Upper Dintra part of it also. That also tells you. So this is the NDC part of it is one that they keep very closely. And if you look at the Upper Dintra area, the voting pattern, that also tells you that story of the how strong the party is there. And then also Dobin Brakwa, another area in the Ashanti region, shares a border with the Assin North area. And then you see an MPP stronghold as well, also emerging year on year. And as we've seen over the last elections, again, they also voting skirt and blouse. So very nuanced in terms of the border that you have, and that trickles into Assin North as well. So this is going to be a very complex elections going into the primary. So the question to ask yourself is, who has the upper hand? Who has the edge? Considering that this is a parliamentary elections, right? And considering that the NDC believes that part is a part that they have a strong base in, you could argue that the NDC has a momentum going into the 2023 the 2023 by-election on the 27th of June. They do. They do have the momentum going in. At least they won it in the last election. So they have the advantage going into this. And then it's been carved out for them. The 3 times they've run it, NDC have won it twice parliamentary. The MPP has won it once. So they have that in their favor. But listen, there are no absolutes in politics. And we've seen in Kumewood, although it doesn't compare, in times like this with the economy the way it is, the MPP still managed to increase their votes there. But one thing you can say for sure, that the Assin North by-election is NDC's to lose. Let's see if my guests agree when we sit for a conversation right after this.